Okay. And we're live. Thorbjørn, good to be here. Doing this.
Yeah, for a little November chit chat with no title today.
No title, but going with the spiritual flow, right? Like that's the. Remember those episodes, and if you're listening in as well, like, and listen to like the first, I don't know, three or four episodes or something. We did some very, very cool, like spontaneous conversations up in the yurt. I think that's like, I would love to kind of bring that energy into this, or like moving forward.
I always think that those episodes are like really they're a test, because any new listener has to go through those, and if they can do that, then they're crazy enough. It's like in the old days where the monks would ask to come into the temple, and the master would kick them out 3 days in a row, and if they came back after the third day, they'd be let in.
It's like if you still keep choosing to come back after those 3 episodes, then it's like you're committed or something. Yeah.
I've always thought it would be better to have a normal episode at the beginning or something, but
that just wouldn't reflect us, though, Thorbjørn, and what we're about.
No, that's the thing. It is what it has to be. You know, one thing that's been on my mind is that and I know you don't really have this problem because you kind of understand it, but when I wanted to be like a spiritual therapist for a while, I always I noticed all these other coaches and basically all the other people out there who wanted to work with people. They were always talking about kind of like as if they had the secret, or maybe they were talking about a certain concept that you should focus on, or they were talking about once you get this, then everything is solved. And they were very confidently posturing as if they knew the secret and that people could come to them and they could learn the secret in some ways, right? And I always had trouble with that, because I knew from my own experience that no matter what you learn, there's always more. And there's nothing fixed. Like, you're not, if you get your self-esteem up or your self-worth up, that's good, but it doesn't solve the human condition or whatever. No matter what, all the work you do on yourself, there's always more, there's always different. So it was always a kind of a paradox for me how these people, they were so confidently saying, oh, it's about this, or it's about this, or I could do this, or I could do that. And I could never do that because I knew that I didn't have the finished thing. So I couldn't promise people that they would get the finished thing. And it was hard to do like a marketing presence when you couldn't confidently say, well, I have the finished thing. But of course, today I know that you can just say that instead, right? And I know that's what you would say, that's what you would do. You would say, well, I don't have the finished thing, but we can work on what we can work on. It's more like that, right?
Yeah, I kind of, as you're sharing this now, what I hear in that, and what I kind of, how I see it actually, is kind of like that. There's like, as far as you go with, if we call it spiritual enlightenment, or we can call it personal growth, or we can call it, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. There's like always a deeper level that you can go, and it's like when you get to one level, there's something that happens that like kind of, it's almost like a test in life or in the universe to see if you can handle that, or if you'll learn that in a way. And once you get to that point, then there's like a deeper level to go in. So there's I see it like as far as as you go through your journey, there will always be another level, you could say.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely not at like the last level by any means or whatever. And in actual fact, I'm more or less starting out, right? And so, and what I do kind of see though is that the further I go in the journey, the further I go in these levels or these understanding of self and I guess the skills and the things that I pick up as I go, is that like sometimes when you're a therapist or a counselor or just, you and I or somebody in life, like when you're able to be a little bit further than that person, when I say further, like maybe you have a deeper understanding in something or a deeper level of whatever that is, spiritual growth, personal growth as a therapist. So basically being at a place where you can see maybe something that they can't see yet. You can kind of unpack something or see something in them that maybe they're not that's not clear in them, and then combine that with like some skills and some, for example, meditation or mindfulness, or in my case it's like working with acceptance and commitment therapy, like so those kind of that framework, you could kind of say. Then there's something to like share with that person. There's something to kind of give that. And maybe they're going to be, maybe some people come to me and they're, but say someone comes in and they're much further than me on the path or with that thing, then it probably won't be a good match, because they were, like there's nothing for me to, then we can kind of just enjoy being in each other's space. But most of the time people come and there is something that I can see that they maybe can't see yet, or there is like a way of working with that thing, not from a place of fixing, because that's what I learned very early on, is that if I'm coming into that kind of with that person from a place of problem solving, you could say, or trying to fix that thing that they're coming with, then pretty much without a doubt every time it will go to shit, basically. Like
resistance.
Yeah, because there's nothing to fix in a way, as far as I see it. How I see people is, like they're like people get stuck. I get stuck. Everyone gets stuck to some degree in some things, and our mind gets clouded, or our emotions get the best of us. And when we get stuck like that for a period of time, that can lead to, anxiety or depression or stress or a whole bunch of different things, right? And it's like sometimes you just need somebody there to pull you out, to kind of to be that beaming light, or that kind of like hold the space for you, just to pull you out of that and to help you see again, if you can see it that way, or help you kind of get back on track with where you want to be in your life, what do you want to do, how you want to show up, and just get back to your your true self. So that's how I see it. I'm not sure if that's really but that's the view that I take as of today, and that might change in a year from now, but that's how I see it from the experience that I have so far.
And I think if I was ever gonna if I was ever gonna do it over, I would have said something like that, right? Because it's kind of like we're just kind of like we're just gonna try and move stuff around, whatever we can move around, right, and loosen some stuff up, right?
Yeah, and maybe sometimes it's
vibing in your energy again, right? Grooving or whatever it is.
100%, and yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. But people get so lost. I can just say personally, I've got lost many times, like in my own mind or reactions, and just like kind of pulled into things. And it's like, it can be extremely like liberating, I guess you can say, or freeing, maybe that's the word, to be with another person that really sees you, that really kind of looks through the mind, through the like sees you in your soul or your true higher self, you can call it. I don't know what you want to call it, but like say that like the true you. And when you're being seen in that way, it's almost like it's like healing. It can be healing in itself. It's just like a space where you can like let go of all this layers and this kind of like social status stuff or whatever, or this needing to be strong or all this stuff. And it's just like then you're just there and you just can be. And in that space in itself can just kind of allow you to let go and to let go of the stories about, that you've been holding on to, or let go of these emotions that you've been stuck with, or let go of like the pain basically. Yeah.
I always think of being a mirror for a person. Like you can be a mirror for each other. That's kind of what pops up in my mind when you say that. You can kind of like be a mirror for another person, and yeah, you can help them take off their personality almost, or their burdens. Get naked in a way.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like, in that space of getting naked, but say emotionally and mind naked, it's like what other now I'm just thinking of getting naked, but like what others like how often is it in our daily life, that we are in a space where we're with somebody that's that present with us. We're with somebody that is that kind of just like there, just holding us in that, like just seeing us and being able to kind of just be with us through whatever emotions, traumas, whatever is going on, like just to kind of hold, and like in a way where you don't need to be in a battle or anything. It's just kind of like you're just being heard and seen, and it's like I don't think it's very often, and I don't know. How do you feel about that, Thorbjørn? Like, do you get to experience that like with other people that often? I don't know.
Well, that's a funny question because I'm pretty picky with my friends. So I do, when I am talking to my friends, I do get to experience it pretty often in some kind of degree. Like, with you and me, like, with you and me, it's very like, with you and me, sometimes it just, when we're together in like real space, sometimes it feels like it's just two lights that just shine back on each other, Sometimes there are moments where it's like, it's almost like we're reminding ourselves who we are or something. I don't know. Because with you, for example, with me, I feel very safe with you, and I feel like I can go down to my most sort of just kind of being. And then I have other friends where I can do degrees of that depending on usually how comfortable they are with silence, right? Because sometimes it requires a little bit of silence. Sometimes it requires to allow it to sort of just let things kind of settle sometimes to allow that space to be. So it's I do get quite a lot of that. And sometimes when I meet other people, I was talking to someone just the other day. It's also nice to see that if they're okay with it, then sometimes I can give them permission to have that moment of silence. And I can see them be like, sometimes they talk a lot at first, and then suddenly they're like, they just do like that, and I don't say anything, and then they can just kind of like they can fall down into that silence for a moment, and they seem to enjoy that, and I like that. But it's only for people who are comfortable with that.
But you know what, Thorbjørn, you do that. Like you give space for that. You could say, like you with that person, you know, and like, or you with me when we're in real life, or now, for instance, we're both giving space for each other, and you giving space for me, and me for you, and it's like this kind of this exchange of like giving space for both of us to come into this being. And actually, when you're talking, it's really interesting that like there's this like a subtle like I can like sense this like vibration in me, just like it's like a very spiritual kind of like I have to experience it when I'm like meditating, right? And then when you're talking now, I'm just like, oh, this is just so yeah. I wonder if like people listening can also experience that, or do experience that. Maybe you gotta drop a comment if you just did then.
Yeah.
Like
one thing that's been happening to me lately is I used to feel like thoughts and emotions were happening to me, but now I'm starting to feel like I'm happening to them.
wow, okay, can you unpack that for a second? Like, so say it again, maybe. Like you thought that, yeah. Say it again.
I always used to feel like thoughts and emotions were happening to me. Like, oh, there's a thought, oh, there's an emotion, and it's all sort of, it can all be very overwhelming, and there can be a lot of them, and it can be like a barrage, and it can be like tiring. But nowadays, it feels more like I'm happening to the thoughts and emotions. I'm happening to them. They're not happening to me.
Well, that sounds like a huge shift. What's going on there, Tobin? So instead of these, so just trying to understand, like instead of you experiencing the thoughts and emotions happening to you, now it's like you're happening to them. Like this kind of I'm happening
Yeah.
to them.
Yeah.
And what is that? What is that experience like?
Oh, that's a good question. It's like
Drop us in, Tobin.
it's like it used to be like my emotions and my thoughts were big and I was small. Now it feels like I'm big and they're small.
What do you can I ask, like was something changed, right, for that to you to experience this shift? Like what is it that you've been doing lately, or maybe it's just like a build up of many years to get to this, or what is happening for you to kind of shift in this way?
Well, it really is the accumulation of the practice that I've been doing, which is just like it can be you can talk about it in many ways. You can call it meditation, um, but it's really like the way it the way it normally is that thoughts and emotions are constantly in our awareness. We're constantly looking at it. We're always seeing it, and so we're always. It's like we're jumping from balloon to balloon. We're always shifting around mentally because there's a new thought, there's a new emotion, and there's no place to really stand. It's always things are always changing. new thought is coming and new thought is coming and all this stuff. But then when you follow a path of meditation, what you do is you start detaching from thoughts. You have some kind of technique, and what that technique does is you basically try to leave thoughts alone. You just let them come and go. And there are a million ways to do this, and there are a million pointers to do this. It's all the same thing, really. And what happens is, or what happened for me, what's happening right now for me is that the the longer you do that, and it's not a linear thing. It's not like it's not like it happens little by little. It's more like it happens in jumps, like we've talked about before. Yeah. Suddenly there's a difference, and that can be deceiving because sometimes you get into a really bad period and you think you've gotten worse at it, but that's right before the shift happens. But that's actually kind of what happened to me. So that's very deceiving. So don't give up because it gets worse, because sometimes that's proof that something's happening. But you have all these thoughts and all these emotions, and you learn to kind of leave them alone. And what happened to me was that the space between thoughts is something I started to notice more and more. And then at some point, I guess, it's almost like I used to be in the thoughts looking at the spaces, but now I'm in the spaces looking at the thoughts a lot of the time. So something switched. And from that space, that's where it feels like sometimes I'm happening to things. They aren't happening to me anymore. And that's sort of what I'm still like solidifying this understanding, but it's been very, very different than before. Yeah.
When you say it's been like it's been different, how so? Like what's changed? What is kind of like
everything is the same, but nothing is the same. Everything is the same, but it just feels like it's all a little further away, almost.
Yeah.
I think Jonathan disconnected. Are you there, Jonathan? There we go.
Yeah, so you're saying that everything is the same, but yet you're experiencing things like nothing's the same, and you're experiencing things further away. Upside down.
Yeah. It's very hard to experience, but to explain. But it's like everything is just a little further away. It's not so serious anymore, and it's not the same. The problems don't feel the same anymore, and it doesn't seem necessary to really worry about things anymore. Like my mind is still there. It is still trying to kind of get back, but it doesn't feel so pressing anymore. Like the things that really used to bother me right now, and I don't know if this state is permanent. Well, no state is permanent, but and I also sort of realized, like, I've been really careful with my time up until now, and I've been spending a lot of time alone and spending time away from people, and just generally, like, because I knew I was looking for something and I couldn't find it if I was too distracted.
Yeah.
But now I feel it doesn't really matter what I do. I mean, if I were to sit and watch TV all day, that wouldn't be good. but because that could still take me out of it. But doing things or being with people or anything, I don't feel in the same way that I feel like I can kind of do what I want now. It doesn't really matter because I understand that the practice is I can do the practice anywhere, basically. And the practice is not really a practice. It's about not fucking it up. It's kind of like if you're walking on if you're walking a tightrope, you got to keep your balance, right?
Yeah.
But it's not really about, it's more about not falling than it is about keeping your balance. And as long as things are going well, there's no practice, right? You'd only have to practice when you start falling. Does that make sense? So you can't really say it's a practice because you just keep walking, and then if you start wobbling, then you have to practice
to come back onto the.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because that's the interesting thing. I've never practiced. It wasn't. Yeah. It's not about.
Go for it.
You just have to not pollute it. You just have to not cover. You just have to not cover up your mind. That's what it is, really. You don't need to try to be aware. You just have to stop being unaware.
I love how much you're confusing the fuck out of everyone, right?
Yeah. I'm gonna make it really, really simple now because it's actually not complicated, but it's difficult to explain.
Basically, what we want to say to you folks is that Thorbjørn has entered a new state of spiritual being, and
okay, so it's really
you can't explain
really
it. That's fine.
It's really simple. Like imagine you're imagine you're sitting in your room and the birds are singing outside, right? Now the birds, you're naturally going to hear the birds singing. You don't need to try to hear them because that actually just comes to your ears automatically. And this is not just the case with birds. This is the case with every sound in your senses. We'll use sound as an example, but it's the same for all the senses. You're sitting in your room and you're just kind of being in your room. And then maybe you hear a bird, or maybe the tree is making noises, or maybe someone is walking around or whatever. And you naturally hear these things. And you might feel like you have to do something to hear them or whatever, but if you let go of everything, you'll see that your ears are still hearing. That's an automatic process. So from that, we learn that awareness is automatic. Everything notwithstanding, if there is a sound and it's loud enough for you to hear it, you're going to hear it. That's how your ears work. But there's an exception. But if you are lost in thought, you don't hear anything. If you're very lost in thought, you hear nothing. If you're a little lost in thought, you might hear something. There's kind of a spectrum, but that's not too important. But the important thing here is that if you're lost in thought, your senses are obscured. So if you're really worrying about, let's say you're really worrying about something that's going to happen tomorrow. Now, even if the birds are singing outside, you will not hear them at all. You're completely enmeshed. So you're obscuring your natural awareness. And sometimes we're with people, and sometimes we notice that suddenly we're like, we come back to reality almost like a snap. Maybe someone says something or does something, and it's almost like a little bit jarring because we're like, oh, I'm back in reality. And we realize that when we were thinking, we were completely gone from our awareness, right? We're gone from our awareness because of thinking. So that means that, that shows us something very interesting, and that is that meditation and spirituality usually tells us you are unaware and you have to practice to be aware. But it seems that it's the opposite. It seems that you are basically
Already aware.
always aware, but then you have to practice thinking to become unaware. Everything notwithstanding, just being sitting here in this moment, you will see and hear and feel and smell and taste everything that comes into your senses, and you will do so immediately. So if you're, and sometimes you see this, and your mind can even take you out of thinking. So let's say you're sitting and eating something, and you're completely gone into your thinking. And then something in the food doesn't taste right. And immediately you come back to your food and you're like, this is not right. And then you stop chewing and you're like, is this something I need to spit out? What is this taste? You know, your mind is just like, hey, something's important here. And you come back to your awareness. So your mind can even do that. So if we understand this, then we understand that awareness is our natural state. And then we think ourselves out of awareness by covering up our senses. Now, what we cover up is not really our senses, but our mind. But that's a little bit, that's not necessary to understand right away. But the important thing is, what does it feel like to be aware right now without trying to be aware? Well, it doesn't feel like anything, it just happens. Right now, without trying to do anything, you are in the space of awareness. Whatever's, and the sound is an easy way to do it, but the same with ears and eyes, whatever, but with sounds. If you're just here now, then whatever's going on in your ears and your sounds is just reporting to your awareness. You can just relax. You're not using any effort to be aware. You see that your awareness is just what you are. You're just aware. Your nature is to be aware. And that's what all the spiritual traditions are telling us we have to meditate for years to achieve. So that's not true. And if you were sitting here, all the sounds in your ear coming into your mind, and you were to try to be aware, what would happen? You would be awareness trying to be aware. So your original surface, your primary mind, which is this mind that's listening effortlessly, would try to do this thing called being aware on top of already being aware. And that's why meditation techniques don't really work, because your primary mind creates a secondary mind, which is now trying to be aware. But that's just a new layer on top of the primary mind, which is already aware. So the act of awareness is seen by the primary awareness, which was already aware even before you make the technique to be aware. So anyway, the only thing you really need to do is try to understand what is it like when you lose your mind, when you become enmeshed in thinking and you disappear from your senses. What does that feel like? Everyone knows the feeling, but take a moment to notice when it happens throughout the day, because it happens all the time. See how you suddenly leave the world and then you come back. Get a sense for that feeling. Like you're on your bike, you're on your car, you're going home. Suddenly you realize you've been gone for 5 minutes, whatever. If we're being honest, probably didn't even look at the road because you were completely gone in your thoughts, right? Suddenly you're
autopilot.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, before this state of unawareness comes, a thought arises that wants to play with you, and then you play with it. So you're sitting in your car, you're driving home, and then the thought comes about the money, or the relationship, or the children, or the thing you have to fix at home, or whatever it is. And and that moment is where you either choose to stay as you are in your awareness. You don't really do anything. You just let that thought come and then you just let it go. It's not really a doing. You just stay in that awareness where you hear the sounds, you see the sights, where everything is just naturally occurring in your mind. You're just naturally aware. You stay in that, or you go along with the thinking, or maybe you try to fight with the thinking. Whether you go along or fight with the thinking doesn't matter. It takes you into darkness. And so if every time your mind creates a bid for your attention, you just choose to stay as you are, then you start to rest more and more in these gaps of thinking.
That space in between the thinking that you're talking about.
Yeah. You start to, and that is your original mind. That's awareness, and that's effortless. And if you keep coming back to that over and over again, which is what meditation is, the highest kind of meditation, is just choosing not to think over and over and over, then you learn the habit of not choosing to think, and less thoughts come. And then you go from feeling like you're all these thoughts and emotions to like, oh, you're the space that is impacting these thoughts and emotions. You're seeing them. They're not seeing you. And then and your mind will still try to get you out of it, or make you doubt it, or say, hey, are you doing it right, or whatever it is that it does. Because it doesn't like when you're in that space, because you're pulling away from it. And that's the process I'm in, is that it's still trying to get me back. But it's the important thing to understand is that thinking is not the problem. Thinking is going to keep happening, but that's not the problem. The problem is, are you going to obscure your senses to go along with the thinking? Or are you just going to let that thinking happen as something that's arising in your senses? Because what's the difference between hearing a sound and having a thought come up? If I hear the birds in the yard, and then suddenly a thought comes up about the money, is there a difference in those two things? There doesn't need to be. If we think there are.
There doesn't need to be. And sometimes there's a believability in them. Like the thought about the money.
Yeah.
Maybe that's true in my mind.
Right.
But I have to like kind of sort that out or something. And there can be a difference without the sound of the bird, for example. However, when you look at it, they're all sounds, right? They're all linguistically, they're just sounds.
That's the crux of it. That's the spiritual journey. Can you endure the fact that your mind is going to tell you, no, this is a real thought, we have to address this, we have to do something about that? Your mind tries to pull you into the world of problems and says, this is real, you have to deal with this, because if you don't, everything goes wrong. But see, that's not true. And actually, if you can stay in your original mind, you'll have a lot more energy, and you'll have your intuition, and you'll have everything you need to sort out your problems. You're not carrying them around. You'll still fix your problems, and now you'll actually get them done because you have more energy. Now that you're resting in yourself, now that you're not worried, now that you're just at ease, now spontaneously you'll be like, oh yeah, now I feel like fixing this thing if it needs to be fixed, because a lot of things don't need to be fixed. So the key thing is really this thing, like, what does it feel like to obscure my mind? When do I disappear from myself, from my awareness, from my senses? And can I stop doing that? And so it's not about suppressing your thoughts. You don't need to do that. It's just like, when a thought comes up, do you need to go along with it? Or alternatively, do you need to fight with it? Do you need to say, oh, I don't want this thought to be here? That's another trick of your ego. When your ego says, oh, I shouldn't have any thoughts, or I shouldn't be thinking that, that's still thinking about what just came up, right? If you think about, if the money comes up and you think about what to do about the money, that's thinking. But if the money comes up and you think about, oh, I shouldn't be thinking that, it's still thinking. You're still being cheated. Don't think about the money. Don't think about that you shouldn't think about the money. And even if you do, then realize that's just more thinking that you're not in control of, and just leave that alone. And if you can do that, then you make that spiritual change, which is you're slowly moving backwards and realizing that you are not your thoughts, you're not your emotions, you are the space in which all those things unfold. And you'd have to be, right? Because one thought comes and you see it, and then another thought comes. So you must be the constant. You must be the thing that sees them come and go, because there's one thought and here there's another. but you're still here. And yesterday you were angry, today you're happy, tomorrow you won't feel much of anything, but you're the constant in all these experiences. You keep being here. And I know this is nothing new. This is what everyone has been saying since the dawn of time. But now that I actually get to experience it, it's very different when you're actually in it. So all this shit you're reading, it is true. You can believe it. It just takes time, and you really have to commit to it. And
if
what
you
said,
if you want to experience it, right? You know,
yeah, and you do. Trust me.
You know, something that my mind, or maybe other people's mind, I guess, questions with this is like, when you're talking about this, you know, like, you are not your thoughts, you're the what's that? I'm gonna fire this one at you, Thorbjørn, because
Yeah.
I'm sure other people's minds are also kind of in threat right now. You could say.
Yeah, let's do it.
Who am I if I'm not my thoughts, or the believability in those thoughts? Like, just who am I if I'm not my thoughts?
I'm gonna get back to you on that one. I have no idea. Well, I don't know, but something better for sure, like something more at ease with everything.
Yeah. And that's what I kind of feel in your energy when you're sharing this right now. Is there's a sense of like liberation, or there's a sense of freeingness or freedom from this mind that has been so much able to just to have, like you said, you know, you are the one having the thoughts not having. No, anyway, however you said it, it's like that shift is like kind of it seems like something is freed up inside you, that you're able to come from this place that was always there, but you're just it was like kind of holding you for so long, and now it's like there's this sense of like, yeah, it's really crazy, because like I've read about what you're sharing in so many books and literature and stuff, and now you're just sharing this experience. I'm just like, whoa, I'm just like read like so much about this. It's crazy, really crazy.
It's weird for me because I'm using the same words as they are, but when I used to read them and I didn't understand them, it was just I just read the same words over and over. Right? Oh, it's spaces. All it didn't mean anything, but now it means something, and all I can do is say the same things, say the same words that didn't used to mean anything, but now they mean something. And what's interesting is that this is the process I'm going through right now. It's not like enlightenment or anything. It's just very early stuff. But even this is like, I don't know how long this is going to stay, or if I'm going to go out of it and get back to it, whatever. But I know for sure that this is the path. This is the real thing, and this is it's going to be when I get there, and that this is the real work. But this is nothing other than like some initial understanding for me. And let me tell you, it's such a breath of relief. Like, I would really want to encourage people to keep going with this stuff, because even this very little piece of understanding is such a relief with so many things. Because life appears as this serious thing where you have to save the person, and the person is always fucking dying. Like, the person is always, everything's always going wrong, right? It's like everything's always fucking going wrong. Like, everything's going downhill, and just a little bit of just a gist of this understanding, and suddenly nothing's going wrong, and it's not particularly serious, and we don't really need to go anywhere, we don't need to do anything, and there's no problem. One thing you said earlier, you said like, oh, when I'm with people in my therapy, I'm not trying to fix anything. This feels like there's nothing to fix, and it's a great relief. it's like getting a vacation.
What have you been released from, Thorbjørn? You said that you've been. It's felt like a great relief from certain things. What has it personally given you?
For me, for example, it's the whole illness thing. I have an illness, and there's a lot in that. And what's going to happen in the future? What's the doctor's going to say? What operations that I'm going to have? And
like
this burden of keeping this body alive and all this stuff. And suddenly, it's like I don't have to worry about any of that. It doesn't really matter what happens. It doesn't even matter about tomorrow. Like, it's fine. There's no particular problem. Things are just gonna kind of. But I had to fight for this. Every time my mind told me, "Oh, here's a problem we have to think about," I had to teach myself to just leave it alone. You get out of your problems by choosing to not have problems anymore. It's really that simple. Your mind wants to have problems, but you can teach it to stop. Yeah.
And maybe like a part of that journey to like stopping the problems, you could say, or like kind of what I guess a lot of what you're sharing today is, creating more space between thoughts where you then kind of cultivate this place of being where you're cultivate this. Well, I find it really tricky to talk about now because like every time I go to talk about it, I'm like, now I'm just going to say something that's contradicting Thorbjørn's. But anyway, like cultivating awareness that is already there. Maybe we can call it that. Like cultivating.
That's what it is. You're practicing understanding that it's already fine.
Yeah. But I think, like we can really sometimes look at like observe children in this sense.
Yeah.
Like not that they're, I don't know how conscious they are of this, but they're really in this place of awareness a lot of the time, and you can't help not be, just absorbed into that when you're around young kids. I think that's a beautiful thing. Like I'm a dad myself, and when I'm like kind of playing with my little girl, it's quite unbelievable how present she is and how much she's just in whatever she is. The emotion, the yelling, the thoughts, the playing, the whatever it is, she's just like fully there, right? And being in that state and like kind of just being engaged in that, it really just kind of brings brings you into that, and I think that's a really, really beautiful thing. And I'm not sure how relatable that is to spirituality, but it can be. It can really be a thing if you want it to be that. Yeah. I just can't help realize, Thorbjørn, when you're sharing this experience of like, I'm just like, man, my mind is like, it's always like coming up with problems. It's always like trying to get the best of me. It's trying to win. It's trying to like kind of, if there's not a problem, it's trying to create a problem. If there's not something to think about, it will get something to think about. It's like, it's just kind of like this. Yeah, it's so active, if you want to call it that. And I just really kind of love what you're doing, and also just like the meditation stuff that I do, and mindfulness and therapy things, because it really just it does kind of cultivate this spiritual, or this kind of presence, or this place of awareness, you could say, and being in that. And that's just so much more freeing and beautiful to kind of live inside of, or live from, you could say.
It's your mind is aware all the time. Can you allow yourself to just dwell in that? Can you sort of relax and just let yourself be in that space? You don't have to practice anything. Can you just your mind, your mind is aware all the time. Because we talked about it, if I snap my fingers, you didn't know that snap was coming. Maybe your attention was elsewhere thinking about something else. But immediately you heard it. So even through your unawareness is awareness. Can you allow yourself to just be as you are, remain as you are, abide in the mind as it is, relax with the awareness that's already there? Do you need to do anything to be aware? Can you trust it?
Can you trust it? Yeah. Can you trust it?
Because I find that that's a difficult thing for me in my process sometimes, is my mind keeps going but don't we have to do something? Don't we have to practice something?
Yeah.
I have to keep reminding myself, no, the awareness is eternal. It's complete. It's of itself. And the only reason you can be in illusion is because you have that floor of awareness to think about illusion. And you can only be in illusion because you are in this aware space to begin with. You can only lose your mind because you have a space to lose it in.
And perhaps, oh wow, I just completely lost whatever was there. That's great. That's.
If you want, I want to give you a simple meditation. You're listening, and maybe Jonathan, you can try it as well if you want to. Next time you sit and meditate, sit down and meditate. Meditate in whichever way you want to. Well, I'm just giving an example because it's not very complicated. The next time you sit down to meditate, just you sit down and then try to just relax in the natural awareness of your mind. And see if you can observe how your mind, in this case with the ears, it automatically hears things. You don't have to do anything. When a sound arises, it immediately pops up into your inner space. You hear it. You even know what it is in most cases. And you don't have to think to do that, as long as it as quickly as it touches the floor of your mind, your primary mind, it's distinguished and perceived. So this is the dynamic function of your mind. This is your base awareness, your natural state. Okay. So now try to look at what brings you out of it. And then just sit in meditation over and over and look at what happens to take you out of it. And then when you see that you're out of it, just allow yourself to go back to it. You don't even have to watch the breath or anything like that. Just go back to natural awareness. Or rather, the moment you realize you're already back to it, because you cannot go back to your natural state. You can only realize that you were out of it. Because your natural state is you. You cannot do anything about it. It's already you. So it's not something you can manipulate. It is you. Anything you do happens within that space. So all you need to do is sit and observe how you lose yourself. And then see if you can come back to just being, just observing. If your mind kind of jumps around, whatever, that's fine. That's part of just seeing. And try to realize that this aware space is always happening. You are always perfectly aware. And within that, you sometimes create thoughts and you disappear and then you come back. But can you choose more and more to just stay in that timeless aware space where everything that pops up, thoughts, every time you hear a sound, that's proof that you were aware. Every time you see a thought, that's proof that you were aware. Every time you feel a feeling of anything, that's proof that you were aware. But sometimes there won't be anything at all, but you're still aware. Can you trust that even though there's no proof that you're still aware? because you know how it works. And then just observe this phenomenon. You go into the darkness, you lose yourself into a thought. And you come back to this open awareness that's aware of everything. And now just realize you're not doing an active practice. You're not practicing awareness. You're just keeping an eye out for this process of unawareness. When that comes, what happens and how do you let go of that? And when you start to understand this, then your practice is just this: don't cover up your mind with thinking. Whatever that process is, don't do that. Just be in your mind. In Zen, they say, ordinary mind is the way. This very mind you have, this very moment, is the Buddha mind. There's nothing more to it. It's just this effortless awareness that's always happening. So can you choose to be a Buddha right now just by staying in the awareness that's already here? The great human problem is that you have two minds, right? Your original mind is always perceiving everything. Then you create a secondary mind onto the screen of your original mind. And the secondary mind has a voice, and it talks, and it turns attention around, and it does things, and then it talks about all these things, whatever. But that's your secondary mind. You don't need the secondary mind. When you're talking in your head, who sees that? But don't make a concept out of that. Just fall back into that aware space. And this is an intuitive thing. You don't need a lot of words. All you need to understand is, what is awareness? What is basic awareness? And what is unawareness? How do I go out of it? A thought arises, and I know better, so I just stay as I am. I don't do anything. A thought arises, I don't do anything. It's not a practice. I remain as I am. I stay in my mind. A thought came. I was a Buddha, and a thought came, and I stayed a Buddha. And now I'm still a Buddha. A thought has arisen, and it has gone, but I am the same. There's an emotion in me, in my body. My awareness is happening to that emotion. But I'm not fighting against the emotion. I'm not conceptualizing it. It's just there, being perceived like everything else. At some point it will go. For now it'll stay. Who knows? A thought comes up. This emotion shouldn't be there. But I remain a Buddha. And the thought goes again. And I don't create a conflict out of it. And then suddenly a thought comes. And then I give up my Buddhahood. And I go along with the thought. And at some point I come back and I'm like, whoa, I was gone from my awareness. I was gone from my senses. I did not hear, see, feel, taste, or smell. In that moment, I obscured my mind. In that moment, I was in the darkness. But now I'm back. Now I have learned the secret of meditation. I have learned the secret of being a Buddha. You don't have to practice being a Buddha. Just stay as the Buddha you are. And that's the spiritual path. And then you go, with time, you go off the pill, you go through your life and you start to do the same thing in your daily life. And you see, well, I'm out and about doing things, talking to people. Right now, someone said to me something and they were insulting me. And there are strong emotions that are telling me I should not let myself be insulted. And the system is angry and whatever. But can I stay a Buddha? The emotions are there, that's okay. The thought, I have to defend myself, can I let that go? Now the thought is gone and I'm still here. The emotion will be there for a while. I'm happening to the emotion. I didn't have to defend myself. I stayed a Buddha. I didn't leave. I didn't go into the darkness. And every time you do that, you avoid one problem. And then you get less and less problems as it becomes a habit. And one day, thoughts are so few and so far between that the awareness that you know is there, because you know from the sound of the birds or the dog barking or the wife going around, or you know that you're always aware because you've seen it again and again. You've seen it happening. Suddenly there's a pain in your stomach and you instantly see it. One day, because thoughts have become so few and so far between, it's so silent everywhere. No thoughts are coming. And then something happens, is that the awareness becomes aware of itself. And then that day, you become enlightened. And then you become a different kind of, a more steady Buddha. But even before that, it was the same thing. You were still a Buddha. You were abiding in awareness in your own mind. You were free of illusion because you didn't run after it when it came up. And the beauty of this practice is that it's not something you do to get somewhere. Every moment you do it, it benefits you. Every problem you leave alone, it benefits you. And then enlightenment just comes naturally. You never have to think about it. It's just a natural conclusion of the fact that you keep choosing to leave the mind alone and just stay as you are. And one day the whole thing just kind of pops like a soap bubble. Because if you don't have any thoughts and you're just staying in your awareness as you are, what separates you from the sound of the bird? Or what separates you from the color of the rose or the feeling of other people? If there isn't a constant thought that tells you that you're separate from these things that you're sensing, then your awareness is part of the world. It is the world. And then at some point, the boundaries disappear and you realize that your awareness in the world is the world. You are the world. That's how you're sensing it. To put an image on it, your eyes are touching whatever they're seeing, and your ears are touching what they're seeing, and everything is touching everything else. And it all starts with this understanding that, am I abiding in my awareness, or am I going into the darkness? And you just need to taste that experience and then choose it over and over again and realize that the money, the love, the illness, the house, the whatever it is, it's all the same thing. There's no exceptions. Just stay a Buddha all the time. And not only do you get to have less problems, but you'll find that the problems that you do have, you'll be able to fix them without needing to worry about them. And that's it. That's the meditation. I didn't know we were going to go here today at all, Jonathan.
There's no words. There's no words. Thank you for sharing that, though. I feel like that's such a precious gift to me, or to this soul or whatever, and to everyone listening today. Like, if you're able to kind of follow along with this and just shut your eyes and just be in this meditation, then so much in your world can open up, and just see what happens. You're sharing your experience, Thorbjørn, of many years of meditating, and right now in this kind of stage of being in this Buddha mind, like kind of in a maybe a more kind of constant, who knows, right? And that's just like, why, if you're listening in today, like, why not just like kind of take this and just, really kind of not hold on to it, but like kind of learn from this. Is like, and just and be in this, like you said, abide in the Buddha minds, right? I love that we went here today, Thorbjørn. I love that. It's I think it's perfect. Like I was really, as you led us to that last part of like the like truly seeing or hearing and being like, connected with everything around us, like this awareness that is just like you as the world, or I think I don't know the exact words used, but I can't help not just be reminded of there's a few times in my life where I've experienced like this awakening, and those experiences are just exactly like what you're talking about. Like it's exactly that, but the only difference is you're actually feeling it. You're there in the world experiencing that, like awareness, being one with everything, like with you, with the sounds, with the and that's just like I don't know, like it's pretty hard to describe that in words. And I think you did a beautiful. You did it beautifully, to it, as always. So.
Thank you. I hope it can help someone, that the understanding that you can choose peace anytime you want,
and you can choose to be free of your suffering, or free of, like you said, relieved of the current problems, or maybe the future problems that you're going to create, but really being relieved or being free from suffering. Like that is like, who wouldn't want that in their life? Who wouldn't want to fight for that, for their life and the people they love? And so like this is like a huge invitation to everyone listening in today to just to do this meditation and to experience this in their lives and see what happens when they do stay more, like have more space and time in the Buddha mind, or the space in between thinking, and just see how things change, see how much you're able to be more relieved from your pain and suffering.
And of course, listening to this podcast, but also working with people, working with Jonathan, other people who are in an aware space, they can give you a taste of it very, very fast, much faster than it took me 16 years to get to this point. And it doesn't have to take that long at all. It's just that I couldn't go to anyone. There was no one that I could go to learn this. So, and people who can give you space, and it's a good thing, you should steal this from others if you can, because there's no point in wasting all those years. Yeah, of course they weren't wasted, but not everyone needs, and not everyone can go on such a long journey when there's no sight of home.
Yeah, not everyone's
Certainly
like
been
Thorbjørn.
Well, I'm like Thorbjørn. Like it's difficult, But finally some proof.
Yeah, but that's such a I think that's such a beautiful, well, a good point is like, why not steal this from other people? Why not, shortcut this in a way where you're with somebody like me as a therapist, or following along like with this, or having a conversation with you, Thorbjørn, in some way, I don't know how that would look, but like, you know, but like really showing up and you know, for example, coming in for a session or something like this, or it just kind of it takes more than one session, but like kind of why not?
It takes
like,
more than one session at Jonathan's to get enlightened. Just so you guys know, it'll take at least 2.
Well, you're just sharing like 16 years to it, and it's not going to take like one session, right? Things can happen very, very rapidly and very quickly in therapy, and it's amazing what change does happen in the space of a few sessions. So it's
you
really
can get whatever you're ready for.
Yeah, and exactly. I love that, Thorbjørn. You can get whatever you're ready for. Yeah. So
we are far over time, Jonathan.
Yeah, far over time. But I really loved this conversation as always, Thorbjørn. And if you also love this listening in, feel free to subscribe to our YouTube or drop us a comment or a review. I don't know. Help us get the word out, basically, by following all the stuff and
do the thing.
Yeah, and feel free to come along with it for a session. Like, you can also free session, and just if anything else, just have a really good day, and we really invite you to do this meditation as well. I think that's going to be like the final thing. Yeah,
and we'll see you on the trail.
Oh yeah, see you on the trail.